Hey everyone, welcome back to the Heath Bar. Got a great episode for you today. I had a good chat with Tom Frear from Cottonwood Studios. He's also the drummer for Kenny Fiedler. If you haven't listened to his music, definitely go check that out. Tom is a super cool dude. I can't believe we haven't crossed paths before. Both of us were talking prior to. We talked a little bit about it in the episode as well, that we know the same people, and it's kind of shocking that it hasn't happened yet. So it was good to get to chat with him and hear a little bit about his life and what got him into music, and his now doing music production and engineering, and he's kind of the go-to for a lot of people around this area to get their music recorded. He's a solid dude. He's put out some great work. I had a really good time talking with him. He's a funny dude too. You'll see right away when the episode starts. But before we jump into that, just real quick, I want to remind everyone on the Substack, you can subscribe to everything going on here at the Heath Bar and everything going on with me at heathjohnson.substack.com. You can also find me on YouTube. These episodes are on Spotify for video and YouTube for video as well. So YouTube is at Heath Bar Johnson, and I'll have links to my channel and everything there in the show notes as well. But yeah, I just wanted to give you an update to that. If you want to go ahead and subscribe to the Substack, that would be fantastic. There's a lot of other things going on other than the podcast. The podcast is kind of the central hub for everything that I've got happening, and it'd be cool to stay in touch and get connected. So anyway, with that, I'm going to leave it at that and just get into this episode because I had a lot of fun talking with him. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Heath Bar patrons, give it up for Tom Frear.
I love it. I love it.
Good, man.
No, really.
Like I said, best experience of somebody answering the video I've ever had was, hey, that's my song in the background. That's really funny. And coming from someone who records music for a living, that's a bit embarrassing if I can say so myself. But
I wish I'll record your next one. I'd love to. It's good stuff. Good playing, good songwriting.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I've actually got a few that I'm holding on to that I want to do in a studio. So we might have to talk offline a bit after this and figure some of that out. But
yeah,
with that, welcome to the Heath Bar, Tom. How you doing?
Thank you for having me, sir. I appreciate it. It's good to be here.
Good. Yeah, we were saying last week or I don't remember when we first connected finally, but we should have met each other years ago. And
I agree.
It's kind of funny that it's happening virtually now, but at some point I'm sure we'll get together. So
do you still do the bar thing?
Like in a like physically? Like
yeah,
I guess come to
how it kind of started.
It did, yeah. So this has gone through several iterations, and at some point I'll get back to doing it in person. But I wanted to do video because a lot of stuff people like to watch, and you can create cool clips, and help promote the episodes and everything like that. So I'm doing the video right now, but at some point I'll get cameras, then I'll be able to do an actual like, hey, let's sit at a bar and have some drinks and talk and make it an actual full on produced show, which would be really cool. That's coming. So
that's the goal.
sneak peek into the future. But in the meantime, it started just audio, hanging out with people. And then now it's this. So yeah.
Cool.
But
I dig it. It works.
Yeah, it does, man. Anyway, so welcome. And I wanted to, man, there's a lot I want to talk to you about. But let's start with who you are and what you do up here in the hills.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, my name's Tom Frear, and I guess I've been in the hills since 2017. And I came up here actually to play guitar in a country band, the Brandon Jones Band. And Brandon and Mike basically Brandon gave me that gig, and I knew Mike Hernandez already, so that's kind of how I got that gig and got or inserted myself into the Black Hills. And
nice.
Yeah. So I played with Brandon for like 5 years and had a couple quote unquote real jobs in that time. Worked at Batch Elders for a couple months and worked at Haggerty's for a year or so. Yeah. And then just decided to follow my passion, which is recording, and just try to make a go of it. So decided to do it full time and teach as well. But recording's my passion, so that's really what I work at.
Damn, that's really cool. 28, you said 2018, 2017. You came up here. I already forgot. That's how bad I am. I turned 40 and all my memory just goes to shit, man. That's how it works. But
you're 40?
I turned 40 like a month ago, man. Yeah. It's kind of nuts.
Wow, you don't work it. So good job. Doing something right.
Well, I'm trying to anyway. My dad's got good genes. He's 72 and he kind of still looks like he's in his 50s. So maybe it's probably genetic, and it'll I mean, at some point everything catches up with you, right? So it's just a matter of time.
That's cool though.
Yeah, so moving up here in 2017, playing guitar. How long had you been playing before you came up here? Like when you started guitar, was it? I've talked to a few people where they'll either start young or they'll take kind of like my route. I was mid, like 16, 17 years old, but I really didn't jump in it until like my early 20s and really getting into it. So I was definitely a late to the game in that. But has guitar kind of been most of your life?
A very good majority of it.
Okay.
Do you want the whole spiel? Do you want like my musical life story?
Well, I mean, whatever you want to share, man. Yeah. I mean, if you want to jump into just like a little bit on what got you into guitar and like what led you to want to move up here and join a country band.
Yeah. Man. It's funny how things work out, isn't it? So basically,
yeah,
I started with piano when I was, I don't know, like second or third grade, maybe. And all I ever wanted to do was like, the Beatles have been my favorite band since I was a little kid. Always wanted to be like the Beatles. And so therefore I had to be in band, and do all that stuff. So to be in band, to be a percussionist, you had to be a piano player. And where I grew up in Nebraska, you have to do like 3 years of piano before you can do percussion in middle school. And so I started out with piano, and I worked at it for a few years, and then I got bored with it because it's not a cool instrument. You know what I mean? At least at that time, it wasn't a cool instrument.
Right.
And so
you couldn't drag it around to parties, right?
No, not really. And that'd be weird. Bring a little like electric keyboard with you.
Right.
You'd be that guy. So anyways, I would be that guy. Totally. So anyways, I got into middle school percussion, and around that same time, my older brother actually was taking guitar lessons. My dad's always played guitar as well. So I grew up listening to him play guitar. And my brother started taking lessons from this guy named Mike Casey. And so I was like, well, that's cool. I want to do that too. So then I started taking guitar lessons as well as doing the drum thing in school. And I really took to guitar because I really enjoyed it. And I've always been very fortunate because my guitar teachers were some world-class players. My first guitar teacher, Mike Casey, his dad was, I don't know if you're familiar with the Wrecking Crew at all, the California studio musicians.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, they were like on all the hits in like the 50s, 60s, 70s. His dad was a Wrecking Crew member named Al Casey. And so my first guitar teacher was basically studio musician royalty, more or less. My teacher had pictures of himself as a kid with like Glenn Campbell and the Beach, but Dennis Wilson, Brian Wilson, And so I learned, that was my first experience to a real, like real music and everything. So anyways, I continued taking percussion seriously in school and didn't really consider guitar to be a serious instrument of mine until I went to college. And at that point, there was a couple other really, really good drummers there and not as many good guitar players there. So I was like, well, maybe I'll try this guitar thing seriously. And there I got to study under Charles Carey. And he was a dude from Florida, another world-class musician. Just, I've never, to this day, he's still the best guitar player I've heard. And unfortunately, both my guitar teachers are now dead. They died in their mid-50s. So that's I can't go back and reference anything, or you know what I mean? I can't. So that kind of sucks. But I still feel very fortunate to have studied under like two such, like, you know, I'm not worthy kind of thing.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that's my basic
cool.
back. Yep. And always been into recording, you know.
Yeah, we're going to talk about recording because that's, like I said, a recent interest of mine, and just learning the world that is plugins. Man, that's a bottomless pit. But we'll get to that. Like, it's unreal. It's unreal.
You have to consciously limit yourself.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So when you're studying under these teachers, was it like, were you able to recognize different styles in the two of them, or is this kind of, because that's one of the things, you know, people, you can identify specific guitar styles. So when you identify different styles, they each do something different. How do you then make it to where it's like, hey, this is my own sound, or this is how I play guitar? Or is that something you've ever even thought about?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think, you know, a musician will I'll probably never stop developing upon my own sound or my own tone or my own style. But basically it's just it's a culmination of every lick that you've ever ripped off. It's like, I don't know, the best way that I was told to find my sound was learn all your heroes, like all of your guitar heroes, learn all of their stuff, all of their licks, all of their riffs, and then like basically never play them again. And from there, you'll kind of develop your own kind of thing. Tom Knowlton actually told me that. And we were talking about bluegrass guitar at the time. And like, I think like Tony Rice, I think more specifically, but I thought that was like really like, it's kind of far out, but I dig it, you know?
I mean, I get it. Yeah. Cause when you're emulating people, like, you know, I mean, especially if you're playing cover songs and that, it's easy to, the crowd's going to love it. You're going to love it because you enjoy the song. So you enjoy playing it. And before you know it, you've spent 40 years just playing other people's stuff, you know, and you never actually, even if you're writing your own stuff, when you're doing the guitar licks in it and everything like that, it's going to be what you know.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you know, even everyone has their like default go-to guitar riffs that you'll always do. If you're having an off night and you're not being very creative, maybe everyone has their default licks that they go back to, which, you know, every guitar player has those. But I don't know. It's like finding your own sound and your identity it's a complex thing. And then
do you think that's something,
finding your own tone? You know what I mean? That's a never.
Yeah. Well, do you think that's something that a person defines for themselves, or do you think it is defined for them from other people just listening to them play, where they can like begin to recognize and pick up? Like, I'm thinking, like this morning, my dad was listening to some stuff and he called me up and I sent him a link to some just chill blues music on YouTube to like kick on while he's doing stuff at the house. I mean, this is, you know, I enjoyed it and I knew he would too. And he called me right away. He's like, man, this has got some Eric Clapton feel to it and everything like that. Just the way the guitar was being played. And so do you think that that's just something people recognize and eventually enough people recognize that it becomes, well, that's the sound of that person versus the coming from the other way?
I think so. And I guess it depends on if you're thinking in terms of like defining like an artist's like a fan base defining an artist's genre. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this person versus how an artist defines their own genre. You know what I mean? Like,
sure,
your fan base could say, oh yeah, he's very folk, but the artist could say, no, not of Americana. You know what I mean? It's like,
right.
I don't know. Yeah. It's all very interesting. How do you define yourself?
Well, that's a good question. I've as I've been trying to work on this album, I've been trying to figure that out for myself, you know, because when I'm out playing, I'm playing folk, Americana, country, rock, you know, ballad, you name it. You know, you play the songs people enjoy and I play the songs that I enjoy. But when I'm coming to, okay, what do I want my song to sound like? It's something I never really thought about it until I started recording it, because I'd play it and then I'd hate the way it sounded. And then I'd realize, well, I've never actually stopped to pay attention to what the song sounds like. I just play it live, and then once it's done live, it's done. You move on to the next song. But when you're recording it, I got a lot of time to just sit and listen to what it sounded like
from
over and over again.
As writer's ears, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And so like coming up with a genre, or trying to put a genre to it, I still think it's more folk Americana, just the way that's been my interest. So I still think it falls into that. But it was an interesting, I guess, surprise to me to hear my stuff at the very beginning when I started, and absolutely hated it. I'm like, this sucks. I should stop right now and never pick up a guitar again.
That's a pretty common problem, though. I mean, no one likes to sound their own voice, as an example.
Right.
You always will be your own biggest critic, which could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing if you're a perfectionist. You know what I mean? Because then nothing gets done, or at least,
Yeah.
But and so you define yourself as folk Americana. Well, maybe your fan base says you're something else. You know what I mean? It's like hard to say.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of them would probably drop me under country. I mean, I like country. I listen to country a lot and I play it a lot.
It's a blanket term at this point.
It is. It's kind of like there's these overarching genres, and then there's these different subgenres underneath it, and it just keeps going down the line. Before you know it, you've got I forget what Andrew would classify his music at. It was like formal folk something. I'm like, that's probably just you in that genre, man. You know what I mean? So
what better way to call it?
That's what happens. That's a good point. That's a really good point. With tone, though, you've mentioned that a few times now. That's a whole other. I've never even tried to look into tone. I mean, I'd play acoustic, right? So as long as I'm getting a nice, clear acoustic sound that's not too boomy and that doesn't sound too harsh or sharp when I'm playing out live, like that's kind of the extent of what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for it to sound like a specific. I don't have a bunch of pedals on my board, right? I have a tuner, I have a DI, a looper, and I'm set, right?
Yeah.
But in your case, I'm guessing that is a ridiculous mountain to figure out. Because it probably changes per song, I would guess, to some degree.
Yeah, very much so. I'm also a big proponent of, so tone is mostly in the hands, right? I mean, I'm a big proponent of that. A good musician.
Explain that. Can you explain that to me? Sorry.
Yeah. So a good musician.
I've never heard that before. So.
You haven't really?
I've never really talked to someone about tone. So like, sure. I'm completely green in this conversation, man. So have at it.
Oh man, I'm not even that deep in the tone junkie world either. I mean, I just this is tip of the iceberg kind of stuff. But tone is in the hands, right? So as in an example of this would be like a good musician could make a bad instrument, or like a bad guitar and a bad amp. They could still pull something good out of it, right? Whether that's playing or tonally, or, they can make it work in some way, shape, or form versus like, I mean, you could take $1,000 guitar, $1,000 amp and, play it somewhat all right and it'll sound good. But, a bad musician can make good equipment sound bad too. So I think tone is in the hands for the most part. Now, if you're looking for a specific kind of tone, let's say like, I want to sound like Stevie Ray Vaughan. Well, then for that tone, you'll need to be good, but you'll need a Strat and like a Dumble amp or something, you know what I mean? Or, so that's more like dialing in a specific sound versus overall sounding good with whatever you're working with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, each amp's going to have its different sound. Each pedal is going to have its different sound, and you can tweak those to, I mean, how many different sounds can you get out of one pedal? It's kind of limitless when you really dive into it,
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I see that where it would be, That, I guess now that I'm thinking about it, that's one of the things I noticed in recording was the way that I strummed my guitar sucked. Like I hated it. I can't believe I've been playing this many shows and people just have sat there and underneath this monstrosity of a sound that was coming out of my guitar.
Not that bad, man. You're making it out to sound like the worst thing.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing though, because like I said, anything that when I go to set up for a show, like I get it to sound good, where I know the guitar isn't going to do a lot of feedback on me, and it's going to sound pretty balanced and everything like that, and that's good to go. But when I was recording things, I'm recording with a couple condenser mics, so it's pretty decent microphones that I'm working with. But like the guitar, the strumming sound was just really, really harsh, for lack of better words. And so what I realized though is that in messing with some EQ, of course, but then also in changing the way that I strum to get the actual sound from the guitar that I wanted, helped a lot in just what it would be played back at, right? Like if you get a bad recording, the whole thing is you can fix some things, but if it's a bad recording, it's a bad recording.
The old adage is garbage in, garbage out.
Right, exactly. And what I noticed though is that has changed a lot to the way that I play out at my shows over the past 4 months, was just recognizing that, hey, I want a nice, full, lush sound from my guitar that sounds smooth. It doesn't sound like I'm just beating on it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that was crazy. I mean, I'm sure this is like 101 for you, but like for me, I was like, this is like a eye-opening like epiphany for me when I'm out on my shows, Oh yeah, absolutely. Because it changed. And then when I do play a song, like I find myself almost enjoying it more rather than, even if the crowd's not into it, if it's a song they don't really know and they're off and that, like I'm enjoying playing the song because I can hear how it's sounding from the speakers, and
you're able to make
less
it more like
apt to rush it.
A musical performance versus, like a balls to the wall bar show. You know what I mean? Like you can actually hear yourself. You can play with dynamics. You can play more musically. Which
is fun. Well, I think that's what a lot of people are trying to get to. I think that a lot of us don't. If we don't think about it, you're not gonna realize it, right? If you're not spending any time thinking about certain things, you're just going to do what you know. But yeah, that's a really good point, is when you're trying to do a show and you're trying not to be just another background noise at a bar, which is where most people get their start. It's where I got my start. It's, probably you as well. I mean, good point.
I still play gigs,
but then when you're trying to, oh yeah, dude, I've come to the point where it's like, if I even tell people like, hey, if you can still talk over me, then I'm at the right level, because I get what this is. You're out having a good time, and maybe you'll hear a song or two that you enjoy and you'll pay attention. But for the most part, your night is yours, right?
Yep.
But there's that line there where you're not just performing publicly to like just to be music for the sake of being music, but you're actually trying to make a show out of it. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, the way you sound is a part of that, but another part is, the songs you're playing and what you're trying to go for, I guess, as an artist.
Yeah, exactly. But, what kind of experience you're trying to sell to a crowd, basically, is what it comes down to. I think anyway, from the whole production standpoint,
Yeah. Do you see that? Because you've been, so drums and guitar, and you've been in bands. Do you think that's easier for a band than like a solo artist?
Yeah,
to create like
more to hide behind. Really,
is that what you like to do? You like to just like get up there and play and hide?
Oh yeah, man, put me behind that drum set any day of the week. I don't want to see anybody. I'm there to make music with my friends, and I can't look up at the crowd, otherwise I'll get nervous.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I'm a solo musician. It's playing a solo show. I mean, you're more vulnerable, to a crowd, to yourself. I mean, in a more it's a more vulnerable thing. I think it's more nerve-wracking for me anyway. But at the same token, it can be a lot easier too, because you're not trying to herd cats. I mean, other band members or musicians, you know. It's
musicians and cats are the same thing, man.
I know, it's insane.
Well, that's been one of the reasons I've stayed solo as long as I have. I mean, I've done a few band projects and some duo projects in the past, but dude, it's just hard to schedule. It's hard. And
yeah,
you know,
but it's also pretty cool though, like when you are doing original music, you know, to have like a full band behind you that has the same vision and belief in the thing, you know, that you're doing. So that's you know, it's kind of like a brotherhood kind of good feeling, you know. It's cool. So
yeah, because you're with Kenny now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good guy to get behind.
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, he's just a great dude in general, like one of the nicest dudes I've ever known. Yeah. So, and the whole band, like they're all good people, so that's great, and good musicians, which helps out a whole lot. And we do all. He's a good songwriter. He's one of my favorite songwriters too, and that helps out a whole lot because he's good at it. He writes good tunes, so it's something I can get behind as well. Which, you know, it's fun. It's cool.
Yeah, I gotta imagine when you're playing in a band and, you know, the song's written by someone else and it's someone else's initial vision, and then it comes into the band and becomes a group thing. Like having the band members proud of it as well. I mean, that's got to speak volumes, you know. Just not in terms of the songwriter's talent itself, but just the fact that, hey, there's a band here that is proud of what they're playing. They're going to put on a good show, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we want to play things musically and have dynamics, you know, and it's a loud rock and roll show, but it goes, you know, it flows. It's got a vibe, you know. It's not just, you're just not getting blasted with sound the whole time, which, you know, so it's musical, which I like as well. You know, it's something I can appreciate.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure. You've been doing a lot of the traveling with him then, because I mean, he showed up at my. Has it been a year, man? He showed up at my birthday party. My wife threw a surprise for me, and I was beyond shocked to see him there. I was like, "Whoa, man! I haven't seen you in like 2-3 years or something like that." But
that
was cool to see him. It was really cool to see him. But
yeah. He's actually, you should be here in about 40 minutes. Him and Casey are coming in at 2:00 today.
Nice.
We're going to work on some new tunes. So I'm hoping that we're still in the interview and they pop in so you can say hi. They can say
that'd be cool. That might be happening.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have.
Yeah, he's Idaho dude.
I took a couple years after my son was born to just kind of lay low a little bit, and I did a few gigs here or there to stay fresh and stay in it. But there's a lot of new faces and a lot of new people that I haven't met that I'm doing a lot of catch up on. So that's how that works.
It's crazy. It's like we live really close together too, but like it seems like the Spearfish cast of musicians are. I mean, it's a whole nother cast of musicians that I haven't met in Spearfish. You know, I know, like I've talked to most of you guys like online or in passing, but there's a lot of talent up in Spearfish in that area.
There's a lot of talent in a lot of places, but I mean, there's definitely a divide by location up here. I feel like Spearfish has its own. You've got Rapid City, and then you've got your East River people, and it's kind of weird how that works. Because I talked to some of my friends in Montana that play music, and they're like 3 or 4 hours away from each other, and they're like, "Oh, I'm just going to hang out," and it's a 4-hour drive just to go hang out for the evening. And how do you, what? Like we can't go 40 minutes up here.
It's great. It's a trip, actually. I've always noticed that too, but I've never known why it's a thing, but it kind of is a thing, you know.
I wanted to talk about Cottonwood Studios and your interest in wanting to do that, and just man, let's hear the story of how it started and what you're doing.
Sure, yeah. So I guess I've always had a love of recording from like way back in the day, from like the little Tascam Porta studio to like, I had a pirated version of Cakewalk on Windows XP, I think, something like that. Something I got from the Pirate Bay. And so it all started with that. And then that guitar teacher I was telling you about, Mike Casey, he owned a music store, or like he gave lessons and sold guitars and stuff downtown Columbus. And so when I was, I don't know, anywhere between 12 and 15 years old, before I could legally drive, I'd drive down to his shop and teach lessons there and run his shop for him when he was out on gigs. And he'd pay me with McDonald's and cigarettes. And I'm like, like this middle school age kid. Yeah. And so anyway, so he also recorded, he had a small, like little recording system. I had like maybe 12 channel or something like. So he would cut people's demos and EPs and that kind of thing. And so I would sit in on sessions with him when I was, of that age range, and I just thought it was always really cool. And so I got to college and I took a semester of recording for the music business program, and really enjoyed it. And then from there, I really just mainly wanted to record my own music. So I got a few recording items, enough to record drums well. And then it got to the point where my friends wanted to record their music too. And so I ended up mainly working on everyone else's music, and I haven't had a chance to record my own in 4 or 5 years now, honestly. And so, which is fine, because it's what I love doing. I don't mind. Someday I'll get a chance to record some more of my own songs at some point, hopefully. But yeah, that's kind of how it all started. And Brandon and I went to Nashville to cut a record with a producer named Mills Logan, and watching him work and being in that studio environment with, first call studio musicians and a multi-platinum producer like that. And I felt really comfortable in that situation. And it was amazing to watch Mills work, just the way he navigated Pro Tools and the way he worked the room and, communicated with all the players. And that was really eye-opening for me too. I was like, oh man, that was sweet. That way I can, and mainly I want to be involved with the music I want to be involved in the making of music, but, spend less time on the road so I can still sleep in my own bed. So that's kind of the main goal behind it. Cause I still like playing live and I like hitting the road. But it's also nice, like I said, sleep in my own bed.
Yeah, I'd imagine if you had the choice to only go on the road when you wanted to and not because you had to or something, I'm sure that'd be preferable.
That'd be ideal. But, maybe in a perfect world.
Yeah. When you were down there in Nashville, did you I get I don't even know how to word this question. I've talked to several people who go down there and they love it. It's a fantastic experience. They meet some awesome people. And then they come back with the idea that they need to move down there.
Yeah.
And
I don't think
did that hit you at all? Or did you be like, oh, this was great, but I'm ready to get back home?
I think it depends on what you want to do, because that's just where the players are. I mean, if you're trying to put together a band to hit the road, probably go to Nashville, because the musicians around here that are available to do that kind of thing and have the skill level to do that kind of thing, well, they're already working. There's just, and I think it's just a numbers thing, honestly. That's just where the players are. So, but like I said, I just think especially with the internet and with travel being, you can hop on a plane and go cut a record anywhere in the world and still be headquartered anywhere else, and around here it's still somewhat cheap, at least compared to those big hubs. And it's still an emerging market as well. I like to think that, I don't know if it'll ever be a Nashville or even a Minneapolis, but it would be nice to put, like Rapid City or at least South, have some type of notoriety and credibility within the music world, the music industry, bring that here too, because I don't want to have to travel to make the music. I want to make it at home. So let's do that.
Yeah, no, I'm right with you on that. Like I think that there's enough ingredients up here with different artists and different people with different skill sets that building something like that could certainly happen up here. I think it's like anything, it's going to take time. It's going to take people willing to likely invest the rest of their lives so that the next generation can enjoy the fruits, right? But and that's what I see a lot of people do is they'll get good up here, they'll enjoy playing up here, they'll move to some place where most of the musicians are, and then I never hear from them again. And I don't. Part of me wonders if it's like, you're a small fish jumping into a big pond, versus out here, it's a lot less people to choose from, so it's easier to build something,
Yeah, to make a name for yourself, or like you said, you have to build a small studio and record your friends. It's great.
Yeah. Well, and I mean that's what happens with a lot of my songwriter friends. But as a music producer and that type of aspect, and you're doing the recording side of it, and that it's nice to have people like stay local with that, so that people like us that want to record our stuff and want to do that, and they aren't wanted to learn to do it themselves because they just are a glutton for punishment like I am. They can jump to places and they can say, hey, it's just right down the street, or it's just in the next town over, and I can actually get I mean, the stuff I've heard you put out from that studio, they've all sounded just fantastic. I mean, so it's clear that you know what you're doing. Absolutely, man.
I wouldn't go that far.
Well,
I'm learning more every day, though. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah,
that's the beauty of music in general, is there's always going to be someone doing something better. Something to aspire.
Yeah,
towards. And there's always something to learn. Always.
Man, there's so many tricks to the process of recording a song. It's got to be impossible. I mean, that's why people seek out specific producers, right? It's like they're the ones because
sound, kind of like going back to the guitar, like some I have favorite producers because of the way that their records sound. That's why we listen to some records that we listen to, because we like the way they sound, and that's most of the time that's a lot of a producer, the producer doing that.
Right. Well, there was about 10 years ago or so, I realized that most of the artists I listened to were produced by Dave Cobb.
Yep.
And
he's my favorite.
Right. But that got me like thinking, like, it's almost like in some of the TV shows, even recently, like TV shows and movies I watched, like they're all written by the same person. And I'm like, oh, I'm actually a fan of this guy and what he's putting out, not so much I like this actor. I mean, of course I like the actors or actresses as well, or the artists that are writing the songs too. But ultimately I was like, if I just start following the producers or following the writers, I'll find good stuff, because they're actually who I'm the fan of,
Yeah, exactly. That's funny though. That's funny you should bring up Dave Cobb. I'm a big Dave Cobb fanboy. Anything he works on, I'm just like, how do I get that sound?
Dude,
still asking.
Have you seen the Isbell documentary that came out last year? I forget what platform it's on, but it was Jason Isbell, and it was when they were recording. When they were recording, I think, the Weather Vanes album.
Oh, I love that record.
It's so good.
It's one of my favorite. That's the first self-produced one, I believe.
Is it really?
I think that's because I think Dave Cobb did the last one, and then if I remember what I read, I don't know, I could be wrong though, but I think it's his first self.
You might be right. I mean, I'd imagine down there when you've produced so many albums with a guy, like even if you're self-producing something, he might just be hanging out in the studio anyway, because he's certainly in the background of the videos and everything. They're probably all just like, this is their Cottonwood Studios. People just come and hang out, and like you just we're recording some music.
Chet Atkins, it's amazing.
Right. Yeah, man. But like, so I first found Isbell on his Southeastern album. I think like a lot of people with that, and that of course drove me back to his Drive-By Trucker days and everything before that up till now. And he's got to be. I think he might be the best songwriter of our era, like of our time. I mean, the dude is just unreal what he puts out, and with little to no like media recognition, when you really
Yeah.
think about it, and the dude's just killing it, you know?
Yeah, he's definitely he's a great guitar player too. I learned that recently. I had no idea he was playing most of the guitar on all those records, but he's a badass.
Yeah. Have you seen him live?
No, I wish. He was here recently, I
Oh,
think.
man. Yeah, we went to that show. I've seen him a few times at Red Rocks and a few other places, but yeah, when he goes to shred on that guitar, it's just you're just mesmerized. You're like, I can't believe that this guy is also arguably one of the best guitar players around as well. It's crazy. But
yeah, his songwriting, I'm a big fan of Coulter Wall's songwriting as well. I guess if we're talking about like contemporary stuff, not more modern songwriters. Yeah. But you know what record I've been hooked on for the last like month and a half? It's an old. You ever heard of Commander Cody and his Lost Planet Airmen? Well, they put out a record like 1971 called "Lost in the Ozone," and it's like old country tunes. You know, it's oh man, it's great though. They have that tune "Hot Rod Lincoln." That's one of the bigger ones.
Okay,
all right, Total Birdwalk.
Commander Cody.
Commander Cody, check it out. It's great.
I already love the name, so it's probably gonna be pretty good.
But what were you gonna ask?
I was gonna tell you, like, people, like, when you hear Isabel and you hear Coulter, like, as someone who records music for people, do you listen to stuff and do you still enjoy it? I mean, obviously to a certain level, yes, but do you find yourself like analyzing all the different sounds and, hey, how'd they get that, or what they do here, or anything like that as you're listening to stuff? Can you shut it off, or is it just how I listen to music now?
It's an absolute curse, actually.
It's like seeing the Matrix instead of like just hearing the song.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Most of it, and I guess sometimes if I really like the song, I can turn it off and just listen as a listener and enjoy it. I mean, if I couldn't do that, then I wouldn't enjoy music, right? So yeah, I can turn it off, but I can't fall asleep listening to music. You know, I analyze everything I hear most of the time. Drives me crazy sometimes. Kind of like someone who would have perfect pitch. I would consider having perfect pitch to be a curse, because that would mean you would hear everything that's out of tune, and things are out of tune pretty often. You know?
Yeah. I noticed that pretty hard about myself when I was doing all the listening back. I was like, good grief. And I mean, say what you will about the tuning plugins, they're not quite to the level where you can't tell, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. If you use them sparingly, you can get away with a little bit, but you know, it's garbage in, garbage out, you know?
Yeah, that's how it is. Yeah, that's an interesting thing though, is learning to like enjoy your art if you're an artist as well. I mean, there's a lot of, like, when I'm like working out or running or going to sleep, the same type of thing. Like, I can't listen to music. Like, I have to, it's either an audiobook or it's a podcast. Like, if it's music, I just can't do it. There's very little in my life that I have music playing on in the background for. Like, if I'm cooking or we're just hanging out, I'll kick music on. But if it's just me, I rarely have just music playing anymore, because I don't know. It's probably a curse. You're right. It's definitely a curse.
One of my favorite ways to wake up in the morning, I guess, is waking up in general. That's my favorite way to wake up. But no, wake up and throw on a record or you know, that's just jam tunes for the first hour of my day. It's usually a pretty good way to set the tone, set the pace for the day, and get a little bit of an inspiration for whatever work lies ahead for the afternoon. But
is it just Tom's theme music?
No, it's a lot of Commander Cody, a lot of old country.
Nice. Yeah, hard to beat that. Beat that.
So
does that when you're prepping for a session at the studio there, do you have like a ritual that you do, or do you like study the artist and learn a little bit about as much you can find about them, or do you just kind of wait for them to come in and then you get the information then before you start, or what is that like for you?
So when I first began doing this, I used to do a lot more pre-session work, as in, like, you know, I still might do a little bit. Like, I might set up a couple microphones before, or maybe I'll set up a Pro Tools session. Maybe I'll try to get a song title and a demo or something like that from the client, or at least a goal or an idea. But lately, I don't worry so much about that, mainly because of something I read that Dave Cobb said. It's just likes to go into the session with no preconceived notions or expectations and just see what happens. And so I've been doing that for about the last year, and it's I enjoy doing it that way now, more so.
Yeah.
Not really knowing what.
Have you ever gotten into it and it's like not what the artist thought that they sounded like, and you've had to kind of coach them a bit?
Oh, yeah. Every once in a long while, I'll get some inexperienced people in here that maybe just haven't recorded before, and they're maybe a little timid to give the performance that they hear in their head. And really, it's a matter of just being comfortable, I think, just getting used to the studio environment, because it's different than singing in the shower. It's different than different than singing live even. But every once in a long while, I'll be working on a track with someone, and we'll be kind of maybe running into creative dead ends. And so when that happens, then it can be kind of fun, because then you can start throwing in like weird things that you might not otherwise throw in, whether it's sounds or instruments or melodies or whatever. And then you kind of force, it's like kind of forcing the creativeness to flow, but that usually will help a roadblock. Getting silly and goofy, honestly, like, well, we don't know what we want to do here, so let's just try adding something. And if we hate it, we hate it. And if we like it, who knows? Maybe we'll like it. So
sure.
But 90% of the time, the artist already has a pretty solid vision of what they want and how they hear it. And so,
sure.
So I'm a multi-instrumentalist, so I'm, lucky in the way, like, I can kind of usually make that happen for them in some way, shape, or form.
Have you ever gotten to a point where like the artist's vision for a song and maybe what your vision of, man, this song really should sound like this, have just clashed, like been the exact opposite destination?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who wins?
The client's always right? Whether I agree with what they want to do or not, it's my job to make it happen for them. And that's, so there's producers out there and engineers that don't work like that. And they will kind of railroad a session and leave their client with kind of a bitter taste in their mouth, honestly, even though the product might be better because of it. The client's not happy. Therefore, there's less, I don't know, passion involved for the client with the song, and the whole process might turn them off to the process a little bit. So yeah, I call those kind of producers stomp on producers, because they'll just stomp all over someone's ideas, say, nope, we got to do it this way. And I don't really do it like that, because who am I to say that someone's idea is right or wrong or better or worse than my own? They're just different.
Yeah. Do you think a lot of that came out of just the overproduced culture of music that's happened in, like, I don't know, the early 2000s, maybe late 90s even, and even you're seeing a lot of that stuff really just deconstruct and dissipate, where people are wanting more. Oh yeah, I absolutely love it too. The fact that people are getting more authentic and genuine like music from one or two people instead of a conglomerate, right?
Yeah.
Do you think really that's where a lot of those producers came from, though?
Oh,
or do you think it's a personality?
I think a lot of those producers are no longer getting a lot of work because everything they do sounds the same. And so now it's like, also, I think I'm really happy with like how I think the tastes of pop culture are changing. It seems like more like organic, real music is becoming more mainstream. You know what I mean? And really, I guess maybe it just stems back to me thinking that maybe the guitar is making a little bit of a comeback. You know what I mean? Like, you see more, but by real organic, raw music, I mean, acts like Culture Wall, Tyler Childers, like all these acoustic acts, like, are big. Billy Strings, it's like these styles and genres are becoming more mainstream. And I think it's super cool, because just like you said, like 20 years ago, we were just getting slammed with overproduced pop garbage, just rinse and repeat, just put a bullet in my head,
Well,
But
I even think of like the artists that, a lot of them that come out of Oklahoma. I'm a big fan of, John Moreland, John Fulbright, Parker Millsap, those guys like, and yeah, they're probably not near as big as people who would recognize Tyler Childers, Coulter, or Isbell, but man, they're, in my mind, like some of the best songwriters and people and performers and artists that I've heard my entire life. And I like you, I started, my favorite growing up was the Beatles. If it wasn't a Beatles song, I didn't want to listen to it for a long time,
Yeah.
But I think until I met Alan Jackson and George Strait, and then I switched over to country for several years. But
As one would.
Yeah, as one would, But
speaking of the Oklahoma scene, that's a whole nother world that I didn't even know existed up until I hit the road with Kenny in June. And Oklahoma, Arizona, Texas, like it's interesting. There's really good players down there. The market's totally different than around here. And there's the big scene. There's a lot of really good original bands doing a lot of traveling down there and, doing things. So I had no idea.
That's cool.
That all, and the area, the market around here is really interesting as well, because it's like you can make decent money playing cover songs, right? But you don't make really that much money. There's really not a big market for original music around here, or really that many venues or listening rooms or, for original music. And I always thought that was interesting. Like going down south to the Southwest, like people are into like independent bands and original music down there. Way more so than around here, which I don't understand why, but
makes me jealous.
Back there nodding his head. Yeah. Oh yeah.
People value music differently in different places.
Yeah, it's a trip. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Especially after COVID.
Yeah, it's
gigs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, dude. Yeah, no kidding. Well, and there's the thing too, like I keep tossing around in my head, like which comes first, the culture that wants original music, or original music gets to the level where the culture can't deny it and it needs to we need to support it or have it. You know what I mean? Like, because if you don't, if you build it, they will come, right? Like if you created listening rooms, would it then draw out original songwriters more, where then all of a sudden they get to develop their talent, develop their skills, develop their abilities?
So. Give them a home to go to and they'll go to it,
Yeah, it's true. The risk with that on the other side, if you're the person starting a business like that, is, well, what if people aren't good yet? Right. Because that's one of the things I always tell people. It's like, what if a songwriter comes to play, the songwriters rounds that we used to do back in the day? It's like, and what if they're not at the level to perform? Like, then they're not at the level to perform, but that doesn't mean they're not a part of the community. Like when I started, I wasn't at the level to perform either. Everyone's got to start somewhere, but you've got to have a culture and an environment around you that encourages your development and growth.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, man, like you're just always going to be dreaming, And
I think I will say, I do think it is getting a lot better around here lately, the last few years. Like more venues have popped up. There's more of a supportive environment seems lately, and like you just had Bubba on the other day I saw, and he's big into like putting people together, and creating those connections. And I don't know, musicians are weird though. There's like, obviously everyone wants to say, oh, it's not competitive, it's not, I'm not competing. It's like, well, that's bullshit. Yes, you are. We're all competing because we all want the good gigs, it's pretty obvious. But it can be friendly and competitive at the same time. We can still support each other but push each other,
Right.
So, and I think we should.
Yeah, healthy. Absolutely. Healthy competition, I'm definitely on board with. But I do see, I certainly see that not as being like enemies at all. It's like, no, we're part of the same market, I guess should say. And there's a limited amount of resources, because most people don't do music throughout the week. So you're looking at really Friday and Saturday nights, right? And so, Friday and Saturday nights, and there's 50 stages around the area. okay, well, I mean, off the top of my head, I know I've worked with at least like 120 different artists in the past several years. I go, that's double the amount of stages. So what do we do? You know, like everyone's fighting, you
Just when you
know,
break it down,
but
it's simple as that, you know, it's like, well, there might be a
yeah,
problem.
yeah, it gets a little tough. And the thing too is though, like when you get places that will support you, like it can be easy as the artist to kind of oversaturate them too. I would guess in a certain aspect of, man, we have a stage. Now I have all these artists coming by and I've only got, you know, X amount in my budget, you know? So it's tough to build that environment and that culture, and the places that have done it, like Oklahoma, Texas area and everything like that. It would be really neat to look into the history on how that evolved, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's a couple of good musicians. And, you know, times were different back then too. People actually enjoyed going out. You could afford to go out and you didn't have to worry so much about getting it. You know, cops weren't as DUI happy, and more people drank back then too. You know, not as many people drink today in general.
That's true. Yeah, there's a lot of people cutting back or not doing it at all anymore. So
yeah, just California sober, you know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's a good phrase.
Yeah,
I don't know if I've heard that one before, but that's
Willie
good.
Nelson and Billy Strings cut a song called California Sober. I think it came out last year. Yeah.
Of course they did. That's perfect.
So, yeah, Riley, you can say something. After this train, there's a train rolling by. This studio is perfect. Historic downtown Rapid City, heavy speed and seat, and there's train tracks that go right behind the studio. So that'll stop a session dead in its tracks pretty often. At least once every day at 1:52.
Unless you're recording a train song.
That's perfect. We love it.
Yeah, well, in the music industry class I'm in right now, we spent a lot of time talking about how like the difference between now and like maybe when you guys were growing up, how much oversaturated music is. Like you can't take a piss without there being a radio station on, or you watch your TikTok and 7 different already copyrighted songs that are being played, and I think that keeps people from appreciating it just as much as they would otherwise.
Yeah. Morning, guys.
Yeah, and that makes sense. You know, if you're sitting in a situation where, I mean, if you're Scrooge McDuckin in music and it's just all over the place, the value of it drops, right? Because you're just swimming in it, and it's like, oh, if I miss 1 or 2 here or there, it doesn't matter because I've got a pool of coins all over the place, you know? So that makes a ton of sense.
People probably people kind of forgot what live music is too, you know?
What's up, man? Oh, yeah, dude. Live, my buddy Max Hay, he used to put out stickers at his show. Live music is best, and he'd pass them out for free. And I've always kind of kept that. I mean, and it's true. Like I love kicking on a record as much as the next guy, but and if I can see someone live, I'm gonna do that. Absolutely.
Oh, hell yeah.
Absolutely.
I also judge people depending on how they perform live versus how they sound in the records. Let me introduce you to some.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. This is Casey Sheldon from Idaho. That's his hand anyway.
Hey, what's up, Casey?
Hey.
Love it.
You want to hop it? You can hop in the front.
That's perfect. Yeah, look at that.
He's just weird on stage.
How you doing, man?
Good to see his girlfriend, Abby Leach.
Great.
Hi.
She's also
Abby. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh yeah, we did meet. That's right.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, absolutely. Man, I should have just driven to you today. That would have been great, man. We hung out there for
next time.
Today. Yeah, we'll do it next time.
But anyways, man, do you have any other questions or anything you want to cover for the time being?
You know, the only thing I wanted to ask you was, is the hempcrete, your studio's made of hempcrete. Did you build it or was that already there?
Not me personally.
And do you notice any difference?
It sounds good. It sounds good in here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I got really.
Do you notice any kind of a different sound that you get with that than anything else, or is it really not that noticeable?
Oh,
really? Okay.
Yeah, it's like night and day from any other type of, I don't know. Let's just say like recording in someone's living room versus recording in here. It's night and day. It's crazy, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't actually build it myself, but it was purpose built to be a studio.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, when I saw that on your guys' website, I wonder what the reasoning was for that. If the sound difference is, if it's like a noticeable like audio wave change, you know. And I'm sure someone's done the science that's way smarter than me to figure that out and why they did it the way they did. But
Well, I don't know if there
cool.
was really much science that went into it, but it happens to sound good though. So yeah, it's like
it was just cheap in there.
It's got a little bit of liveness to it, but overall it's pretty dead just as it is. There wasn't much treatment really required. So that's nice.
Well, it comes out in the stuff you put out. Like I said, it's all sounded, everything I've heard that's come out of what you've done has sounded fantastic. Did you do the, I forget, did you do the Cigarettes and Milk with Kenny? Was that done there?
Yep. I was done in this room right here.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that speaks alone for itself then. It makes good music. Hempcrete all the way then. So there you go.
Oh yeah. And it's, it's like green and fully sustainable, and there's really doesn't need too much HVAC. It stays pretty well, temperature control on its own, which is nice. Except when we get,
cool.
It's pretty well hot as fuck all the time.
Yeah, especially when we have band practice in here. The AC likes to quit working, and it gets pretty toasty actually. But yeah, other than that,
yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah,
I can imagine. Well, cool, man. This was great, dude. Thanks for taking the time. Next time we'll have to do it in person. We gotta find some time to get together too. And like I said, I've got a few songs I'm not recording in my basement on purpose because I think they need more than what I can do. So I'll be in touch.
Yeah, come on down anytime. That'd be great. Hell yeah.
Sounds good, man. Cool.
All right.
Thanks a ton. We'll talk to you later.
See you next time then.
Jeez.